Should the Bears fire Ryan Poles? That question is being asked by fans and media alike, and I, for one, find it absolutely ridiculous. Every GM has a ton of misses, but people want to fire Ryan Poles because
The
he
Bears.
missed on a third round pick in his first ever NFL draft. The funny thing is, when I ask people why, most people will point towards either the offensive line or the Velus Jones Jr. pick. I get it. We do need to fix the offensive line. But going back 3 years to talk about Velus Jones Jr., come on now. The most common thing I heard recently is how Ryan Poles passed up Bernard Raymond for Velus Jones Jr. Bernard Raymond. This one is laughable. There was one player taken after Velus Jones Jr. who's turned into a pretty good left tackle in the NFL. The Colts selected Bernard Raymond, but every team in the NFL had passed on him at that point, not just Ryan Poles. And when it comes to making bad decisions, every GM in the NFL does that. The 49ers took Trey Lance number 3 overall a few years ago. The Lions took Jamison Williams in the first round with the 12th overall pick a few years ago. In his first 2 seasons, he didn't even get 400 total receiving yards. The Lions also took Jeff Okudah with a top 3 pick in the first round. Velus Jones was just a third round pick, but there are multiple busts taken within the top 10 to 15 picks of the first round in every single draft. What about the Lions' third rounders last season? They had 2 and took Hendon Hooker and Broderick Martin. Neither player has started a single game yet or contributes. Should Brad Holmes be fired for missing in the third round? No, because every GM in the NFL does, which makes the Velus Jones Jr. pick irrelevant. The Chiefs have won back-to-back Super Bowls and still make bad picks in the draft occasionally. They took running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round a few years ago. They took Sky Moore in the second round a couple years back. The NFL draft is not a perfect science, and there's always guesswork involved. There isn't a single general manager in the entire league that hits on every pick, and most have busts in the first and second rounds as well. So far, Ryan Poles has been able to avoid that, and he's made quality selections early in the draft. His picks in the first 2 rounds are Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, Darnell Wright, Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker, Jervon Dexter, and Tyreek Stevenson. Which of those players is a bust? Compare his draft history to any other GM in the league, and you will be surprised by how good Ryan Poles' picks look. You judge a GM by the players he picks, not the players he didn't pick. There are always players that end up outproducing and ending up as steals. No GM has a crystal ball, and they should be judged by their overall body of work. And for Ryan Poles, he has done a tremendous job overhauling this roster. Fans that are going back 3 years to cherry pick and hate on the Velus Jones selection show me that there could be a lack of football knowledge there. Some fans are just crazy and ridiculous. They think that passing up on Rome Odunze and drafting one offensive lineman would have magically fixed this entire O-line. When engaging with fans like this, it's best not to engage. It's always normal for fans to blame coaches and management when the team isn't winning. But every situation is different, and our coaching staff does deserve a ton of criticism. I'm not saying Ryan Poles has been perfect, far from it. No GM has, but people have taken the crown logo too seriously. There are just too many fans and media members blaming Ryan Poles for the shortcomings of this team. To me, I do believe he should have tried to build the trenches first, but there are a couple of things that fans are overlooking. Character matters. The person that we're drafting matters, not just the player. In Ryan Poles' first 2 drafts, this team had almost no talent on the roster, and the most important thing he needed to do was hit on those picks, not just draft offensive linemen. We had an entire roster to fix. And yes, I do believe in building the trenches first, but I also believe you have to take the best player available when you are on the board in the NFL draft. And the fact that we didn't have a first round pick in Poles' first draft really hurt us. And on top of that, we had one of the worst secondaries in football. That's where Kyler Gordon came into play. He fit everything that you want in a Chicago Bear. He has all of the characteristics: toughness, passion, heart, talent, athleticism, drive. That was Ryan Poles' first pick. He got a first round talent in the second round. Sure, you can dig through the draft and find a decent offensive lineman later, but Kyler Gordon was the best player on the board, and Ryan Poles has continued with that philosophy, drafting best player available. But you guys wanted him to pass up on Kyler Gordon and Rome Odunze to draft less talented players on the offensive line just because of some fake myth on what order you build the roster. There are no two Super Bowl teams that are alike. There is no one way to build a roster. There are not two Super Bowl teams that were built exactly the same way, and there's no magical way to build a football team. There's also the human element and the matter of resources available. There's just so much here that people do not account for. People forget that he traded the number one pick and passed up on Jalen Carter to take Darnell Wright. That was the first time he ever had a first round pick, and he invested it into the offensive line. So you can't say he's done nothing to fix this offensive line and then ignore that the first ever pick he made in round one was an offensive lineman. So far, Poles has made 3 first round picks: quarterback Caleb Williams, wide receiver Rome Odunze, and right tackle Darnell Wright. Which of those players did you not want Ryan Poles to draft, and who did you want him to draft instead? Look, I get it. We need more offensive linemen, and we need more help in the trenches. But it's also important to remember that this offensive line has been horrible for more than a decade, and that drafting one offensive lineman instead of Rome Odunze would not have fixed anything. The next offensive lineman taken after that pick was Olu Fashanu, a tackle for the New York Jets. So far, he's played only 351 snaps this season, and he's given up 16 pressures with 3 penalties, and his PFF grade is a 57.6. That would not have fixed this O line. For comparison's sake, Braxton Jones is graded out at a 75.5, nearly 20 points higher than the rookie tackle that people wanted us to take instead of Rome Odunze. Look, it's a fact rookie offensive linemen struggle in the NFL, especially tackles. That doesn't mean he won't develop into a great player, but my point is the offensive line is a unit, and drafting one player does not fix the entire line, especially for his rookie season. The reason our offensive line is not good is because we went more than a decade without picking an offensive lineman in the first round. Ryan Pace never did it, not one single time. That is on Ryan Pace, not Ryan Poles, who invested his very first pick in round one into the O line with Darnell Wright. So if you ask me, we need to give our GM credit for what he has done. Ryan Poles has fixed the quarterback position. Let's not forget we've been asking for that for our entire lives. Some people have been waiting over 70 years, and Poles has gotten that done. He found us our franchise QB. And on top of that, he added weapons to help Caleb develop. DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen. He re-signed Cole Kmet and added DeAndre Swift and Roshan Johnson. Let's not forget that when discussing Ryan Poles. And on top of that, the offensive line is not finished yet, but it is the hardest position group to complete, and it takes multiple years to build, and you have to find the right fits. The guys have to fit well together. All of these things are overlooked by fans and media alike. If Ryan Poles doesn't put resources into the O line this offseason or get the head coach right, then it will be time to hold him accountable. Right now, though, let's give the dude some credit and have faith that he will continue building this team this offseason. I, for one, have faith in Ryan Poles, but based on what I've seen from everyone in the media and most of this fan base, it feels like not many other people have that same faith. I do. Let me know in the comments how you feel about our current general manager, Ryan Poles. Also, stay tuned because I'm not done talking about our GM yet. I have an even bigger video breaking down every move he's made coming later this week. Remember to hit the like button for me. Stay tuned. And until next time, bear down.